Здравствуйте, привет, меня зовут Лаура, и это моя канал на YouTube «Языки с Лаурой», и сегодня я хочу говорить о кыргызском языке. Hello everyone, my name is Laura, and this is my channel Languages with Laura, and today I want to talk about the Kyrgyz language. So I have started a while back, I started a new series on my channel where I want to talk about endangered languages. I started this with Wolof in West Africa, specifically in Western Senegal and Gambia, after I spent a couple months there in Senegal and I got the chance to learn the language a little bit as well as some of the history behind it, and so I really wanted to continue doing that kind of research and making videos about it. And so today I've decided to talk about the Kyrgyz language because I did spend a year living in Kyrgyzstan. And I didn't really get a chance to learn the Kyrgyz language, which is why I did the intro in Russian and everything. But I did get a chance to learn a lot about the language, so I thought it would be really fun, and I really want to also promote the knowledge of endangered or dormant languages. Some people don't like the terminology endangered languages, which is totally fair, so sometimes they use dormant, but basically these are languages that are in danger of going extinct, of having nobody speak them being dormant or asleep, and that just kind of breaks my heart a little bit. And so I want to just do research on these languages and then share that with you, just in case you're also interested or fascinated or want to learn more. So, Kyrgyz, yeah? Da. So, according to the census information that I gathered this past summer for a different research project of mine, the population of Kyrgyzstan is about 6.975 million people, with about 3.8 million of those people actually speaking Kyrgyz to some extent, which is about 54% of the population of Kyrgyzstan, which is a small country in Central Asia. It is next to Kazakhstan and Russia, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please look up a map. Open another tab in your browser and look up a map of Central Asia. You will find Kyrgyzstan right there, because I didn't even know that Kyrgyzstan existed before I had the opportunity to go and live there, and then I absolutely loved my time there. Yeah, if you're not familiar, I get it, the American school system didn't teach me a single thing about Central Asia, but definitely go look it up. They're pretty cool. Their flag just got remodeled, actually. They changed their flag ever so slightly, just a small detail of making the waves of the sun straight, and I don't like it. And I've met some other local Kyrgyz people who also don't like that. They want it to be back to the original design, but their flag is even really cool because it's actually the yurt, a yurt, which is the traditional living situation because the Kyrgyz are traditionally nomadic people. So it's that with 40 sun rays, which represent the 40 tribes of the Kyrgyz people, which is so cool. So even that, their flag is great. And Kyrgyzstan literally means land of the Kyrgyz. So we're gonna dive back into the language. The Kyrgyz actually used to be in a different area of the world. They used to be more closer in Mongolia and northern China, and even a little bit in the Russian Valley. You can find old Kyrgyz there, or they have found evidence of the old Kyrgyz language in those areas, but that is different than what we know as modern Kyrgyz today. So there was an old Kyrgyz, and that was seen as the South Siberian branch of Turkic languages, but like I said, they are traditionally a nomadic people, and so after moving, and specifically after the Mongol conquest, the Kyrgyz people actually moved to the Tian Shan Mountains, which is modern day Kyrgyzstan, actually is based around the Tian Shan Mountains, and so they would be nomadic in that area. And the Kyrgyz language has 3 different dialects that we know of. So it's a northern dialect, a southern dialect, and the Pamiri dialect, which is mostly spoken actually in northern Afghanistan. and the Northern Kyrgyz dialect today is known also as the standard version of Kyrgyz, and I believe that is because the capital of Kyrgyzstan, Bishkek, is in the northern part of the country, so that is where most of the education happens, especially higher education. So it makes sense that the northern dialect would be the standard version, if that's where you have your large population and the capital and things like that. But modern Kyrgyz is known as a Turkic language, specifically in the Kipchak branch, because of the influences that the Kipchak people had on the language way back before they even moved before the Mongol conquest to the Tian Shan Mountains. In terms of the written script for Kyrgyz, it's actually had quite the journey, because Kyrgyz, we believe, used to be written in the Gokturk script, which was like this ancient Turkic script, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. I don't actually speak Turkish or any Turkish languages really, which is quite sad. And like I said, I never got the chance to study Kyrgyz, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but I believe it is the Gokturk script was what it was originally written in, and then actually it went to the Persian Arabic alphabet, of course, with the Ottoman Empire and everything like that. And then in 1928, only until 1940, so a very short span of time, it was switched to the Latin alphabet. And then, of course, 1940, after that, it switched to the Cyrillic alphabet with the USSR, and it, to this day, is written still in the Cyrillic alphabet. However, there was a push, like 10-15 years ago, by politicians to switch it back to the Latin alphabet, but nothing ever came about that. It was just something that was kind of said, and then nothing happened. So it is still currently in the Cyrillic alphabet, but it is just crazy to me that it has been through 4 different writing systems, which is so cool, and also like, what? And the Cyrillic alphabet has letters that do represent, I believe, every sound in the Kyrgyz language. Especially the like a lot of the glottal and deep throat sounds. Kyrgyz has a lot of that, which is actually why it was not taught to me. So when I went to live in Kyrgyzstan, I was living outside of Bishkek, about an hour outside of the capital, in a smaller village actually called Shopokov, and most people, if they're not from Shopokov, they actually don't know where I'm talking about when I talk to them about it. So I say, oh, it's in between Sokolok and Bishkek. So they told me that the best language for me to learn when living there was Russian, because we were close enough to the capital that everyone there did speak Russian. However, the Korean students that were living there, they were told to learn Kyrgyz, and that was because of the linguistic similarities between Kyrgyz and Korean, mostly just the ability to make those sounds, because like I said, even though Russian does have the I sound and they do use it, it's not near as frequent as it is in Kyrgyz. And so they said, okay, all Americans learn Russian and all Koreans learn Kyrgyz. That's just what the program was for us, which was quite a bummer. I did actually ask my Russian teacher, who was Kyrgyz and who did speak Kyrgyz, if she could teach me some, and she was like, no, we're just focusing on Russian. Russian is hard enough. But Kyrgyz does have some similarities with Russian in terms it has the 6 cases that Russian does, and it also has the formal and informal version of second person, as well as, you know, first and third person. So it does have a lot of those similarities, even though it is still very much a Turkic language and has more word similarities with Turkic languages. Fun fact about Kyrgyz is that they claim to be the longest epic in the world. It is the Epic of Manas, but it is also known that Mahabharata is actually the longest epic of the world, and the reason these two butt heads is because Mahabharata has the longest number of words, while the Epic of Manas actually has the longest verses. So how this happens is basically the Epic of Manas has more verses, but they are shorter. You know, they're shorter lines, which is why they can claim to be the longest, because they have the most number of verses, but they're actually not, just because they don't have the most number of words. And Manas is a huge figure in Kyrgyzstan. If you go to Bishkek, you will see statues of him everywhere, like everywhere. He is the hero for Kyrgyzstan and Kyrgyz identity. We're pretty sure he's a fictional character. Maybe he was based off of someone in history. We don't really know from a scientific world or a non-Kyrgyz world, we don't actually know. I had a hard time researching that when I tried, but I saw statues of him everywhere and he seems pretty cool, and he's got a whole epic for him, so, you know. Even though it is spoken roughly by around 54% of the population, it is still a struggling language. Russian is still the official language and first language for many people in this country, as well as Kazakhstan. I believe those are the only two post-Soviet Union countries that still have Russian as an official or the only official language, even though they do have native languages of the various people that live there. This also could be because Kyrgyzstan is actually incredibly diverse. They have many different people groups, not just the Kyrgyz people that live there. So it is the common language to speak between them. Kyrgyz is also most commonly spoken in the smaller villages away from the city, and within the cities they teach Kyrgyz as like a second language in school, but most students don't actually study it very hard or feel that they can speak it. Definitely if the country like right now moved from Russian being the official language and the business language to Kyrgyz being the official and the business language, most people would struggle and would not be able to work because they don't speak the language well enough to make it past daily casual conversation, which is really hard to read and to hear about, but it is just not something that has ever been emphasized in politics or in schools past just your basic like second language courses. And most people, if they do speak Kyrgyz, they also speak Russian, and they also speak possibly 1 to 2 other languages, just depending on their ethnicity, their parents, where people came from, and things like that. The other issue with this is that because nobody studies the language like strongly academically, there's no literature that's written in the language. There was like one author that came out with a book in Kyrgyz, and that made such a huge deal. Like I can remember back in 2018 seeing, even though this book came out in 2008, like there were billboards of this author everywhere because it was so unheard of for literature to be published in Kyrgyz, because everything official just is in Russian. So there is no literature, there's no higher education that is in Kyrgyz or is really about Kyrgyz. Like no students are studying it to really make it a language spoken by the large population in order for it to become then a national language. However, that is somewhat old information, just because I have heard things in various news sources that with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, there has actually been a huge push among younger generations who are the ones who are not really speaking Kyrgyz because their parents moved from the villages to the capital to get a job, thus speaking Russian, using Russian. So children aren't learning it really or using it in their daily life. But there has been a push among those generations to revitalize and to really practice their native languages. So it's not just Kyrgyz, but you know, also Kazakh, Tajik, Uzbek, like Dangam, like so many different languages. Just with Russia re-invading Ukraine, a lot of Central Asian countries and youth have really started to push for learning and promoting their native languages almost in combat and in solidarity with Ukraine, which I think is extremely fascinating to study and to read from. But I wish that such a horrendous event wasn't necessarily the trigger for something like this. But hey, if people are getting excited about this, we'll take it, right? I hope you learned something. If you like this video, let me know by giving it a thumbs up. I had so much fun researching the little areas of Kyrgyz that I didn't already know from my time living there. This won't be the case with all the endangered languages I do. I won't be able to travel around the world just to learn about every single language because there are like 8,000 languages in the world. So that's just not really going to be super possible for me, but I did want to start with some of the ones that I do have some background in. Yeah, so if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, comment down below if you know of any less common sleeping endangered languages that you would like me to research and make a video like this on, just covering the basics of history, culture, linguistics, and how it's doing now. I would be very happy to, so make sure you comment down below. And if you know Kyrgyz, or if you know anything about Kyrgyz, especially if I missed something really cool or important, please comment that down below. I would love to talk with you guys about it and definitely spread more information about it, because Kyrgyzstan has such a beautiful and fascinating culture. It does hold a very special place in my heart because of that. I also have other social media linked down below, like Instagram and TikTok, that you can follow me there and just get more language learning content from me. And yeah, if you like language learning content or informational language-based videos or travel videos, anything within that stream, definitely subscribe and hit the bell to be notified. I am trying to go back to posting one video a week now that my semester is not near as hectic and busy, and I have lots of really fun videos planned to come up, especially my language goals for 2025. That's gonna be a really fun one for me to make. So definitely stay tuned for that by hitting the subscribe button. So yeah, spasibo большое, rahmat, which is thank you in Kyrgyzstan. I did learn rahmat. That is very important. People get so excited when you actually put effort into learning things, which, you know, is all we can do is try. So rahmat, thank you so much for watching, and until I see you all in the next video, пока!